guys, it's me, Cheryl360, and I'm going to be talking about what I think is episodes 7 and 8 of W. I'm not exactly sure, honestly, because it's been a while since I've had a chance to catch up with things. My week has been really busy, which is why I didn't do a review of this sooner. But we left off, we always start where we left off. That's one really cool thing about W that I don't think I've mentioned in any of the shows, is they do that thing that comic books do, where the comic book will end and then the next issue leaves off or starts out on the last panel of the other issue. This show does that. Like, it always does it. Whenever the last scene is in the last show, the next show starts on that scene. And then the narration, that's another thing that comic books are really good for, is that they'll give you kind of a quick up to speed. That way you can get right into the storyline, because a lot of times with comic books, let's say that you aren't privy to be able to buy episode or issue 1 and start over from the beginning and keep going. They kind of bring you up to speed really quick for what you need in order to be able to appreciate issue number 65, So I love that they kind of did that homage to the way that comic books and webtoons are made when they did these episodes. Another thing that I also noticed, sometimes the narrator changes in the beginning of the show. That depends on who is reading the webtoon. I did not realize that. Apparently, whichever one is like more cognizant of the web series during that particular episode, they seem to be the one that actually narrates the intro. So like episode 7, Kang Chul was kind of more in charge of the storyline in episode 7, and he did most of the reading in that episode. So he was in charge of it. But then episode 8, you have Oh Yeon-ju doing the narration at the very beginning of the episode, because she's more in charge of the storyline and the reading in that episode. So I thought that was also a really interesting note they do. These are just little things that I have noticed, and I just wanted to make sure I talked about that. But y'all aren't here for that. Y'all are here for summary. I'm going to do the best I can with summary, but there's a lot that I want to talk about these episodes that just really touched me in a way, because they're so thoughtful. This whole series is so thoughtful, honestly. Like, the people who wrote this, I realize that this is a series that's being made currently. Like, it's not one of those pre-filmed 15 months ago type things. This is being done in real time. In fact, there's even like some dates on the plane tickets that are like real dates, like right now. And of course, they've got themes dealing with the Olympics in the show, and the Olympics are going on in real life right now. So yeah, very closely linked to the here and the now. But somebody had to have been writing this story for months, if not years, before this was produced, because everything about this show is airtight. Like, everything lines up. The logic is sound. Like, it's written so incredibly well that I can't imagine there were a lot of last minute rewrites and retakes, because everything just fits together way too well. It's like puzzle pieces. They just link up too good. But I appreciate that about this show. Along with the link up, this show is extremely unpredictable. Like, I thought I knew where the show was going for a little while, and then it went a totally other direction, and then I got confused again, and then it made sense, but then I wondered how we were going to get out of that, and then they did something I didn't expect to get out of it. Like, it was just, I have yet to be able to feel like I can really predict what's going on with the show, and I love that. I really do. I love that, because it gives me something to look forward to at every turn, and I just think that that's wonderful. But yeah, we'll go ahead and start with where we left off with the last episode, with Oh Yeon-ju popping back into the webtoon world. She's on the floor of the prison. They find her. And then Kang Chul, he wakes up in his bed from having been rescued from the Han River by a fisherman who happens to also be an expert diver. And of course, as soon as he wakes up, he wonders, like, what am I doing here? I killed myself. Why am I awake? And they explain to him that, they found him in the river. And then they talk about the fact that Oh Yeon-ju is found, and that she's on a prison transport bus to a maximum security facility. Of course, he interrupts the transport bus, goes on there to talk to her, and she's smiling, because she's like, I did it! I brought you back, aren't you happy? And of course, he's kind of like, but I killed your father. And she's like, oh, no. Dad's fine. He's on a trip. It's okay. Just worry about getting me out of jail. That's all you need to worry about. Live your life. I'll see you later. Bye. And he's kind of like stunned because, he did not expect to be living, basically. So he's still kind of in a state of disbelief. The next day he goes to visit her at the maximum security facility. And when he goes to visit her, he basically tells her right off, you think you did a good thing, but you really didn't. Because when it comes to my life, nothing in my life is real. Everything about my life has been predetermined. And I finally do something that is of my own will. I chose to end it all. And of course, that wasn't good enough for you and your father. You had to bring me back because I'm your entertainment. I'm your toy. I'm your puppet. Well, I didn't want to be. That's why I jumped off the bridge, because I didn't want to be a part of this fantasy world that you made up that only causes me emotional pain. And she's kind of like, you know what, you're right, I fucked up. I shouldn't have brought you back if that's the way you feel, but I did it because I love you. And this is important because I didn't mention it about how she was able to get back into the webtoon. But she got back into the webtoon because it turns out that she is actually one of the creators of W. She created the character of Kang Chul when she was in high school watching the Olympics and was watching a sharpshooter on TV who actually did not get the gold. And with that, she decided her ideal type would be a smart, determined, sensitive, go-getter, charismatic sharpshooter high school student. And she drew him because apparently her first dream was to be a cartoonist. So she draws him as her ideal type in high school. And her father took that ideal type to make Kang Chul, which means that she's a creator as well. And that's why she was able to save his life. That's why she was able to do a lot of the things that she's done. But in being kind of a part of the creation of this character and him coming from her very own desires, she has a really strong link with him and has had over the years. And when she says, because I love you, that's not her kind of, falling into insta love. That really is a love born out of years of reading and admiring and loving and just, kind of going on a journey with this character, and in a lot of ways it parallels, the way that fans feel about certain intellectual properties or certain celebrities, the love we feel for them. I mean, definitely it's unrealistic in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it is a real love because you invest time in a character or you invest time following a celebrity. And so that's a real portion of your life. And over that time, you develop this affection. Like me personally, I love the characters of Harry Potter. I think that they're wonderful. And I've been reading stories about Harry Potter like every night for years. Like they're really a part of my life. And so I am not in love with any one character in Harry Potter. Like it's not that serious. But definitely, if I didn't have that link to them, then reading fan fiction about them where people take these characters and put them in different situations or they try to write stuff close to canon, it wouldn't touch my heart if I didn't have a real emotional link with them. Same thing with like idols. I went to see Shiny at a fan meet in Dallas, and it was my heart still. But I wouldn't have had such an emotional response to seeing them if it wasn't for the fact that I've invested years following their career, buying their music, seeing their variety, watching their stages, watching their web series, like a lot of time spent with them. And over that time, I've developed these feelings, and these are real feelings of admiration and, of, encouragement and everything else. I don't realistically think I'm going to marry any member of Shine. Like, that's just not even, that'd be stupid for me to believe something like that. But I still have an emotional feeling towards them. And if anything ever happened to one of those people, I'd be devastated because I've invested so much of my life caring for them. And I thought that was a really cool parallel with her. So I got off on a tangent, but you know what I mean. And I thought it was awesome that instead of him turning around and throwing her affection in her face, he acknowledges her affection and he gets where it's coming from, because she's a human and she says, I love you, and he knows it's real. And so much of his life is fake. So much of his life is just a creation for other people. But he can tell that she's been real with him. Like his parents' death, they were just created to die, but she is a real person and she loves him. So he has a real love in his life, and he decides, you know what? You have given me another chance, and you gave me other chances before when you were saving me in the cartoon. So I've decided I'm going to take this chance and I'm going to repay my debt, but I'm also going to use this chance to create a new focus for my life. I mean, obviously this whole killer thing, this is all fake. This is all, a mechanism to get from point A to point B. But now I've got something real. I've got a real woman in my life who loves me, and maybe through having that relationship with her, I can solidify my own humanity. And I thought that was brilliant. Like, the people writing the show, for real, like, you guys, you're the MVP. So he decides that to repay this kindness, of course he's got to get her out of jail. And along with getting her out of jail, he's decided that he is going to give her a romance. And he already had a great start on it, because that kiss they shared at the jailhouse, that's one of the sexiest kisses I've seen in the K-drama in a long time. And it wasn't like salacious sexy, it was more like there was a lot of tenderness and heart to the kiss. And so that in and of itself made it sexy. But he's got a plan. He's going to romance her, and he gives her 4 options for romance, which was hilarious. She chose, like, the most realistic option for romance. But he's going to romance her, and then the story will be that she is his wife, and she's from America, and that's why there were so many issues with her, not having ID. Why was she around him all the time? Why was she able to, save him at the last minute? Because they were married, but they got the secret relationship, and she was afraid to reveal it. So they start wearing rings, and they start sharing kisses, and it's really adorable. And I love that they were able to put that kind of rom-com thing inside of this kind of thriller mystery show. But things are going cute as they play out the role of lovers. But of course, that can't last long, because the killer is out there. Because we saw the killer in episode 6. He was on the Han Bridge attacking folks. And the killer calls, and he wants revenge. He's like, I see you got a wife. My whole role in your life is to kill your family. I'm coming for your wife. I'm coming for your wife. And of course, that's got Kang Chul shook, because he was thinking to himself, okay, I've got a real woman. We're in real love. I don't know how long we'll have her, but this is something that's not predestined. This was not a part of the plan, and I just want to take advantage of it, seeking my humanity through her. And now you're going to kill that too? The fuck? Why can't I escape this destiny that's been written for me? But he's worried about her. And he's worried about her, and he's really having a hard time dealing with that. Meanwhile, somebody else is having a hard time is Sui, because, she was his side character for a long time. And just like the doctor, Professor Park, had said in another episode, they were kind of written to be together. And without her being the leading lady in the story, she literally is no longer a factor. Like, she starts to disappear because she's no longer a factor. And it's sad, because that kind of is the way things are. When you're no longer a part of the story, you serve no function. You can disappear. And that's the thing with the culprit, which is another thing that I found genius about the writers. Somehow or another, the culprit manages to escape the cartoon world and come into the real world and find out that he is fictional. And it makes sense, because there legitimately are 2 lead characters in this show, or this webtoon, that are lead males. It is the Kang Chul character, who is our lead protagonist, and then we have the culprit, our lead antagonist. So their existences are extremely intricately linked, intrinsically. And so when he finds out that he's not real, he has his own questions. Like, okay, but who am I? Why do I want to kill this guy's family? Am I just a killer? There's nothing, I don't have a profile. All these years I've been hunting this man down, killing everything he loves. I have no profile. And so he is like killing people left and right because he doesn't know what to do now. Everything about himself was about being able to cause misery to Kang Chul and them eventually having some kind of a showdown. And I found that fascinating, and I wonder who will have the power to give the culprit the identity he needs in order to be able to have an ending to that story. Because even if him and Kang Chul have confrontations, which they've had over the years, he has to have an identity. He has to have a reason why he did this. That way he can have a reason to end it all, you know? But I thought that was really interesting as well. And then the turning from a character into real. That I think I might have figured out, and I think it might be Kang Chul's fault, honestly. So Kang Chul has this vision, or this image of Eunju getting shot in the head by the culprit. I mean, he imagines this happening, but it doesn't really happen. And so he decides, let's just chill out for a moment, and, why don't we go cook some ramen. They had this whole fantasy sequence of them at the Blue House, but that didn't happen, so I'm not even going to mention that. But they decided to cook some ramen, and they're getting ready to cook ramen, which of course he knows nothing about because he's been rich for the majority of the story, so people have been cooking for him. She's cooking the ramen, she's chopping up the green onion, and she cuts her fingertip. And when she cuts her fingertip, it bleeds. And of course, Kang Chul and me is like, okay, you're getting too real. The fuck? What's going on? She's getting too real, and that's when he realizes, I've got to send you back to the real world, because if you can bleed here, you can get shot in the head here, and you could die. And the culprit has already said he's going to try to kill you. So she goes back to the real world, and of course she's shook because, she's still bleeding in the real world. So there's real permanent consequences to what's happening in the comic world happening in the real world. And the reason why I say this might be Kang Chul's fault is because the first time somebody from one of these fantasy worlds was able to harm somebody in the real world was when Kang Chul crossed over to the real world and shot Eunju's father. Yes, Eunju's father tried to stab him in the comic book world. But he's always manipulated Kang Chul's life. That really is the natural order of their whole webtoon existence. But for the webtoon to be able to injure a real person, that very first crossover happened when Kang Chul shot the father, Osunmu. I hope I'm saying it right. So once he was able to injure somebody in the real world, it made sense that the culprit could go around and injure people in the real world. And he's just killing random people, trying to find the secret to his existence. So Eunju's in the real world, and she gets a phone call, and the phone call she gets is the culprit, and she immediately is like, okay, pack up her shit, let's go. She's ready to run. She grabs Sumbong, and he's kind of like, what? But she's like, come on, buddy, let's go. And the killer is standing in the street, and he's ready to kill someone. And I love the reactions of the people on this show. I find their reaction to be very normal. I am Subong, because I would be like, like, I would just be scared to death. I would be frozen in fear. And that's what he is. And then once he realizes that the killer's kind of away, even though Nuna's gone, he immediately starts running down the street to get away from anywhere he thinks the killer could find him. Oyunju's mother shows up. He's like, no, we can't go in the house. Run, go that way. Trust me, go that way. But yeah, I like the way that they're writing the story. Like, the reactions of people, they make sense to me. But back in Webtoon world, so Oyunju, she is about to be shot in the head by the culprit when her and Subong run away from the house after she's gotten this phone call. At the last minute, when the bullet should have pierced her in the forehead in the real world, she disappears and goes into the Webtoon and is in the car with Kang Chul, and she explains to him what happened and does she know how shook she is. He's like, okay, well, we need to go check on Sui, because Sui, she has been just a mess because her whole existence revolves around Kang Chul. She's quite literally disappearing from his life and from the life of the Webtoon. Like, she's becoming transparent. He goes over to her place, and that's when we find out that her passcode is Subong's birth date, because, you know, she's his pet character, I guess. But they go inside the house, and Kang Chul tells her, you know my marriage is fake, you know, you're the only most important woman in my life. He says all this stuff, and because he's saying it in the comic, it brings her back. And of course, Oyunju is watching, and she's kind of getting hurt by watching this, but she also is smart. And I love that they wrote her to be smart. She doesn't go like all jealous wife or whatever. Instead, she realizes he has to tell her this he has to tell this stuff to Sui to bring Sui back to solid. You know, and she even starts like caring for the cuts on her foot and stuff because she was drunk and stepped on a broken glass. But she even realizes this had to happen because before I appeared in the cartoon, she was your leading lady. And they show kind of, I guess, flashbacks of them being written as high school students together and, you know, sharing good times and laughter and being very close. And I feel like in a lot of ways, Sui was a surrogate for Oyunju before she made it into the comic. I mean, because they met as high school students. She was a high school student when she dreamed up this other high school guy, Kang Chul. So, you know, while she couldn't literally jump into the comics back then like she does now, Sui was kind of that high school girl who was close with this guy, and, you know, eventually she grew up into this glamorous woman, and I don't know, I feel like that's what it is. Like, she was the replacement figure for Oyunju in the cartoon, and now the original kind of has shown up in a lot of ways. So there's no need for duplicates, you know. So I'm wondering if maybe Subong is going to show up in the cartoon, in the webtoon, and sweep Sui off her feet. That'd be awesome. I would love that. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting how just smart they play her. But after they fix up Sui, Kang Chul and Oyunju go up to the rooftop, and he tells her, listen, everything that's going on right now, I just don't even know how to solve it. So the best thing I could think is for you to make it to where it doesn't exist. I need you to bring me back to where I was before I discovered who you were. You know, make it to where this is all a dream. Which I thought that was cool that he called out that trope, that it was all a dream trope. I thought, okay, writers, y'all are on it. But he's like, you know, knock me out, put me to sleep. You know, I'm going to jump off this building anyway, so you're either going to have to rewrite my life or I'm just going to die now, whatever. But he's like, you know, I care for you. I'm building an attachment to you. But at the same time, you know, everything's all fucked up. People are disappearing. It would just be better for none of this to have ever happened. Because not only will my friends come back, not only will, you know, will I not kind of have the knowledge that a different world ever existed, but more importantly, you don't stand the risk of being killed because the culprit is out in your world and he's able to actually hurt you. And I was like, you know, I get where you're coming from, but now what are we gonna do? Like, that was my immediate thought when he did that. I'm like, okay, well, fine, but now how are you going to interact with her if you're closing off that door? So it was interesting. And so he ends up waking up in the hospital where he was after he had been stabbed on the rooftop. And so, you know, he wakes up with tears on his face, doesn't know why. I don't know how much of the dream he actually remembers, not sure at all. And then they show, of course, Oh Yeon-ju drawing his scenes the way that he wanted to spec. So I'm interested to see kind of where we're going to go in the next couple of episodes, because he's going to be reintroduced into the real world. We already saw like previews of that, but how they're going to reintroduce him, that I'm very interested in. But I just love the idea of existence that comes on in this show, because, you know, everybody on the planet, unless, you know, you're blind, sees out of only the eyes that they have. And if you're blind, you may not see out of the eyes you have, but you only feel from the textures that you have contact with. You only hear from your ears. Basically, the entire world that you're looking at only really exists in your mind, your way. Not saying that I'm like a cartoon character as part of your neuroses. This is all very confusing. Basically, what I'm saying is the entire world, as I perceive it, is that way because of the mind I have. Like my opinions, my likes, my dislikes, what I choose to watch on TV or YouTube, what books I choose to read, what music I tend to interact with. That's the extent of my world. And anything outside of maybe my interest or what I run across, it kind of doesn't exist for me, you know? And I think that's something that we all kind of take for granted, is that there's a lot of things out there that we have no comprehension about. That doesn't mean that they don't exist. That just means it doesn't exist for you. But for Kang Chul to find out that that is the only reason why he exists. Like, it's not just that, you know, oh, my world is all about this, that, and the other. It's like, no, your world, you only exist for the pleasure of somebody else. You don't really have a world. And that's got to be life-shaking. And one of the other characters, a friend of his parents, he mentions that, you know, when you told me that there's times when you can't account for, or you black out or whatever, I have those same things. You seem like you have an answer for that. Will you tell me? He has an opportunity to share with somebody what he knows about their world not being real. He says, I wouldn't do that to you. And I thought that was so awesome. Because, I mean, he could share this truth with his closest character friends. But he thinks about how much that wrecked him. To find out that everything was a lie. Everything is false. And he knows how much it broke him up. And he knows how it's driving, later on he finds out how it drives the culprit crazy. He wouldn't do that to them. And this show, man, I've talked for almost 30 minutes because this show, man, this show is so packed with just layer upon layer of thoughtful, just interesting concepts. And it's done in such an accessible way. Like, it's not done in a really pretentious way or hoity-toity way. It's done entertaining. It's done funny. It's done smart. And it's done relatable. And I just find it to be one of the best things I've ever come across, entertainment-wise, both in Korean media and in Western media. Like, this really is, I really sincerely hope, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I really hope they do a Western remake of this series. Like, I don't care if it's in the UK or if it's in Canada or if it's in the United States. I just need some Western media group to see this show and say, we are going to buy the international rights to this show and we are going to do it. Because I need this show to be shown to other people from other places. Because it serves two benefits. Number one, you know, it spreads this whole show and gives so much more credit and, you know, popularity and notice and visibility to the people who created this awesome thing. But number two, I want everybody to be able to experience how great this concept is. And I know a lot of people can't get past the whole subtitle thing. So, if it takes putting it in their home language, let's do that. Because they need to be exposed to this, because this is some stuff that really has you thinking. It just really makes you think. And I applaud thoughtful entertainment. The world needs more thoughtful entertainment. Alright guys, thank you for watching. This was a mess. I'll talk to you later. Bye.